Oh, mother of God, really? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first official National At Home Dad Network Dad X Discussions. This used to be referred to as our webinar series. Over the last couple of years, this has become much more of an interactive discussion and a lot less of a webinar type experience. So overall, we've decided that we're going to mix things up a bit and actually make sure that people have a better understanding of what we're doing. But long story short, welcome to the first ever Dad X discussion. Today we're going to be joined by Phillip Fry. Phillip and I met right before Home Dad Con. Well, actually at Home Dad Con in Cincinnati. He was my roommate, and he's a fascinating guy. Lives up in northern Arizona and raises pigeons. And he did a presentation at Home Dad Con this last year about learning lessons from, raising pigeons and that type of thing to apply to your kids in your life. And so without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Phil up onto the screen. Evening, Philip.
Hey, Matt, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Glad to be here. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties connecting to Facebook right now. So if you bear with me, I am sharing the YouTube feed onto the Facebook page so that
Cool.
Everybody can see.
Right on.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, yeah, I live up in northern Arizona, full-time stay-at-home dad. I got 4 kids, 1, 3, 5, and 10. And yeah, this is it's definitely been something I wanted to share with other parents and full-time caregivers and stuff like that, as far as all the benefits I've had myself of just bringing kids into something that I enjoy and all the stuff that they get to learn from it too. It's been a pretty fun journey.
Awesome. So how did you get started raising pigeons? I mean, like, obviously you have real ones behind you. I just have a virtual background.
I like that background. That's cool.
Yeah. How'd you get started, man?
So, stay-at-home dad, right? We're always looking for like side gigs and hustles and whatnot. And I was into doing white dove releases because they're homing pigeons. All white doves are white homers, by the way, and they're all trained to come back. So it's an easy gig where my kids can just wait in the car for 10 minutes while I go somewhere and let go of some birds, and then they beat us home all the time. They're really good about it, and it's an easy little cash money side hustle. But then it's kind of this rabbit hole. There's over 600 breeds, and all these white pigeons are cool and stuff, but I want to check out some of these breeds and some of these other ones. It just started snowballing into a really fun hobby.
So I had no idea that, like, the white doves were homing pigeons.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, that's my understanding back in the day was, oh, so these guys just increase the dove population in this area every time, but yeah, all pigeons are doves. All doves are, the name Columbia olivia is rock dove. So all doves and pigeons, they're all the same. So yeah, the white ones, they're just trained birds, they're homers, so they'll come back pretty far distances too. So I don't live too far from town, but like I just did a couple of white ones at a funeral a couple weeks ago, and yeah, they beat me home. It's a pretty fun little side hustle.
Oh, look, you got one on your shoulder.
Yeah, yeah. So this guy right here, man, this is our boy here. This is Mr. Fluffy. My kids named him, but
Okay.
He's our house pigeon. I just wanted to bring him out here to show you guys just how you go to pet him, man. They chill out real good, and yeah, he's a real fun little pet to have.
Oh, that's neat. I mean, like, when I was growing up, I had a friend whose family had a cockatoo.
Yeah.
And I will point out those were not that friendly and nice and chill.
Yeah,
Cockatoos
and
did a lot of screaming and yelling at people.
yeah, and they're with all the different breeds. You would think. So this guy right here, he's actually a Central Asian tumbler. So when he flies, he'll do a flip, he'll do a flip, he'll do some corkscrew flying and stuff like that. But you think, and he came out of just some guy's loft who was training tumblers, so they're pretty active birds. And you think that they'd be kind of wild or whatever, but I mean, he tames up so quick, and the more handling and stuff like that, he gets better and better. But he's a really good bird. I mean, my kids hold him all the time, and you can see when you go to pet him, he just ducks down. He likes getting
Oh
attention and
yeah,
stuff, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
that's awesome. So you mentioned like training tumblers, and you talked about like the homers are trained to come. Like, how do you train a pigeon to come home?
That so with the homers, you get the young birds, and then once they're able to fly, you kind of let them out of the loft. You train them how to go in through the trap door by hand, and then they figure it out pretty quick. They're pretty intelligent. And then once they kind of start flying around the house a little bit, building up some muscle, then you kind of take them out 5 miles, 10 miles, and I release them 3 times at each one just to make sure they really get it down. And you just because I go into town a lot, and town for me is pretty far away. So anytime I go to town for the bus stop or whatever, I'll release my birds from in town, especially if I'm doing white dove releases at certain cemeteries. I release them from there. So it's a training thing. And the guys that are in the race clubs and are really doing the big stuff, they'll do 100-mile tosses just as part of the training for getting these birds ready for the really big. They'll have 600-mile races and things like that. So they really want to make sure you got birds that are in good shape for that and can fly back at a good speed too, because that's how you win.
I mean, how long does it take a bird to fly 10 miles?
Not very. Their average speed is around 60 mile an hour, so they can really book it. If
Wow.
they get a tailwind, they've been clocked over 90 mile an hour on a tailwind, so
Oh,
they
that's
can no stops. You know what I mean? No, they don't care about traffic. They just straight line back home. So that's why they always beat me. I can release them and immediately drive back, and I'll look at my window and I'll see them, but they're going straight to the loft, and I got to stay on this road, so I'm veering off and coming back, and yeah, by the time I come back, they're all waiting for me. But
that's
that's
awesome.
yeah, that's a fun hobby, and the kids every time, no matter how many times I do it, because I'll let the kids take turns popping the crate and letting them out. And are they all going to be home? Are they going to get home okay? Yeah, they're going to get home
Well,
okay.
that was going to be my next question: is do you ever lose any?
I've only lost one so far. It's different for guys that like California and stuff. Some of the guys who fly like rollers specifically, they don't actually do releases with the rollers. They just fly them at the loft. But so those birds will do the somersaults in the air, and they're more prone to. They look like an injured bird, so birds of prey will hit those guys more. And where I live, I got ravens all over. I don't have a lot of trees. It's high desert, so the ravens kind of patrol the sky, keep BOPs away. And even if I lose one just because he gets misdirected or whatever, pigeons are survivors. They're just gonna live out of some dude's barn or whatever. They inhabit every continent except Antarctica, so they're not struggling if they decide to go move somewhere else.
Well, that's awesome. So I know that you had put together a little presentation for us.
Yeah,
Uh, you want me to go ahead and get started with that?
yeah, sure. Let's bring that up.
All right.
So that's kind of a bold title, but for real, everyone needs to get pigeons.
Yeah.
So yeah, first off, I just before we even begin, let's remove any false stigmas that come along. When you hear the word pigeon, right? So rats with wings is kind of like a you know derogatory statement in my opinion, because it got started and that was like 1960 something. A New York commissioner used the phrase, and then Woody Allen used it in that movie Stardust. Oh, the killer pigeons. And so then it spread into this whole thing where pest control companies are saying, hey, this is another service we can sell. There really isn't exactly a lobbyist or anything for pigeons. And so just throughout the years, everything else, pigeons, these pest control companies actually used to make false information that they'd spread diseases and they'd cause all these problems. But the CDC has no record of anybody dying from getting sick from a pigeon. You're more likely to get sick from a mouse, a rat, one of your cats or dogs. That's just how it works with the different species. So there's no fear about getting sick or anything like that. I've never gotten sick. Like I said, the CDC's never had anybody die from a pigeon on their record. So
Well,
the
that's a good sign.
Yeah, and the real history is our history goes back far with these. As far as there's written history, there's records of people keeping pigeons. It was depicted in most major religions. Obviously used them in a lot of our wars. There's been 32 medals of honor given to pigeons. That's the Dickens Medal, which is like the animal equivalent to a Medal of Honor. It's They were a status symbol. The way that we used them back in the day, that's how we communicated. That's how distances and information traveled. That was like the smartphone of the day. How you feel about your smartphone is how we used to feel about pigeons. And so it's kind of sad the way things have really kind of taken this other turn. They really have shown a lot with this, but so this is kind of what got me to do the presentation. The
Uh-huh.
Shannon's book. That's such a good book. Any
It
stay at
really
home
is.
any stay at home parent, dad, mom, whatever, can benefit from reading this book. So he's got a passage in there where he talks about bringing your kids into your passion, because everything we do is a teaching lesson that we're doing with our kids. So compared to reading, 20 books a day or whatever, you're going to bring them into something you like doing. You're not going to get tired of doing it. You're still going to be able to incorporate lessons and things like that. And you're not going to tire of it. And so that's kind of what I've done. My kids are with me all the time. And so they've been part of handling the pigeons, feeding the pigeons, watering the pigeons, and everything else. So, but that was a good part I took out of that. Um, and before I really want to mention this too, for me, it's been a therapy thing. Going into my pigeon loft, like having a cigar, checking out some of the young birds, just sitting in there. And every documentary that I've ever seen, which is I've seen like almost all of them, somebody makes mention of the emotional and therapeutic part that pigeon can do. Relieve anger, stuff like that. And as parents of our kids full time, we got to refill that cup. So whatever we do for our own mental health, stay with it. I'm just saying that this can be, another tool in your
Another
bag
outlet.
there. Yeah, absolutely.
No, I mean it makes sense. I don't. We don't do the birds, honestly, because we live within the city limits of our city, and there are very, very specific laws. I think I'm allowed to have chickens, but no roosters
Oh,
and
okay.
ducks,
Yeah.
for some reason. But one of the things that I really enjoy that I do with my kids is that when the seasons hit, we do a lot of foraging for wild mushrooms.
Yes.
And that's become something that like my kids are really into. Now, eventually they'll actually start eating the mushrooms that we find. Right now, we're in the picky eater phase, so they're not real big on eating them, but they get super excited to like go out and find them.
Yeah.
And much like you're talking about relaxing in the coop, we even if you don't find anything, you still get to have a great day hiking in the woods.
Yeah. It's a good excuse to get out for sure,
Yeah.
into some fresh air. And this is the other side of it. So the whole point that I was making with my presentation in when we went to DadCon was animal husbandry is kind of at the core of this, as far as lessons that you can teach. And I feel like when people hear that, this is what they think of, right? Like farms and cattle and everything else. And with pigeons, it's not really the case. They're obviously smaller creatures and things like that, but their setups are small. They only eat one pigeon is 1 tablespoon of feed a day, and you get like a 40-pound bag for like $15. So you can train, you can teach, you can watch breeding programs, all that stuff within a little cage and stuff. So these are some examples of some of the lofts, and you can see down here on the bottom right, that's a portable loft. So if some guys will actually train roller pigeons to be in a portable loft. You can also use portable lofts for releases. But I mean, the size of these, especially for the Birmingham roller pigeons, they use a really small kit box for those. They're smaller birds. You actually want to keep them in a smaller loft. Like this one over here on the far left, the multicolored job, that's one of my lofts. That used to be an outdoor shower that I converted over, and hey, it's my racing loft now. It doesn't need to
Okay.
be too big, but even if you can't do an outside setup, pigeons as pets, you know, that's been something that's been going on for thousands of years. And you can have a real nice little setup like, this guy here, Mr. Fluffy. We just got a bird cage, and it's he's in the house with us. He'll come out, and I got a little perch I built up on the wall. So he'll hang out with us and watch some TV. They make awesome house pets. I'm an animal person, you know, I've cats,
Yeah.
dogs, I had the reptiles and the fish and stuff, but I'll say like as far as maintenance goes, it's and you know, personality and stuff like that, it's been one of the better pets that I've gotten into. But
So I have to ask the really important question now.
yeah,
You talk about having one in the house, and you've got like a little perch for him, and he sits and watches TV with you. We all have kids. What's the poop situation?
right. So I got that perch for a purpose, right? So I built it where I take two paper towels and it kind of goes through the middle, and you know he's gonna poop. So I put him up there because as soon as you take him out of the cage, it stimulates them and they poop. I put him up there, let him get it all out of his system, and then he's good. The kid situation for me, the only bad thing, so my 1 year old, and he's still got that baby grip. You know, there's been
Mm-hmm.
times where we'll be like, hey, you want to pet Mr. Fluffy? And he acts all cool, and he just grabs a hold of him, and I'm just like prying his fingers, you know, like trying not to injure the bird.
Don't crush the birdie.
Yeah. So that's, but even that's once they get older, like my 3 year old, you know, she's always been my handler for the young ones, and my 5 year old too. She likes holding them, and it teaches them to kind of be gentle with them.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's and my son actually right now, the 10 year old, he's doing a science project for his school, and it's what chemical works best for wiping up pigeon poop. And so
There
he
you
did all
go.
the petri dishes, one with bleach, one with soap and water, and you know, we're watching the bacterias grow and stuff like that. And I'm like, I get it, and I'm sure a lot of our friends will get it, but some people in your school are going to be like, dude, what are you talking about? Why? Who
Oh
cares?
no. I'm gonna tell you right now. My daughter is 10, and her biggest complaint right now at school is the fact that why is it that boys are so fascinated with bathroom humor? And I'm
That's
like, I wish I could answer that question, hon, but the bad news is we don't ever really outgrow it. Because I'm 52 and I still laugh at poop jokes.
hey,
Um, so again, I think he's going to be a hit at the science fair with it.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, we had to bring this because I think we're trying to put it up on a poster board. I'm like, man, I bet if you brought that poster board, you know, to some of the pigeon shows and stuff, people would probably be like, oh, really? That's the best one, you know? Because
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
I was just like,
there's a side business opportunity there. You
huh,
figure out the best one. He needs to formulate his own little spray can, put a
mi-
logo on it,
right?
and start
Yeah,
his college fund early.
specifically for pigeon poop.
There you go.
Get that niche market there.
Somebody.
Um, yeah. So this is where it gets really cool, right? So, like I said earlier, there's over 600 different breeds, and that's just on the standard, right? And it's not just like a little bit different here, a little bit different there. It really, it really gets pretty amazing as far as what they can actually do. So you got like, you know, like I said, the Birmingham rollers, they'll fly and do somersaults. This was actually a video. I don't know if are you able to play the video?
You should be able to.
Okay, because it keeps clicking over.
No, no, it's reading it as a slide.
Okay, so
Can you get to the actual slide on your computer
yeah, yeah,
and play it there?
okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Maybe if you just share screen,
Yep, I'll go ahead
it
and do
should be
that.
able to do that if it comes down to it. I will say this totally looks like the pigeon is wearing like a brown fur coat with a really tall collar.
Right. I mean, it's got some. It's
Got
got a
some
little
fluff
bit of
there.
yeah. I mean, it looks good. I think you know.
Yeah.
And let's see. Here we go. Share. I guess I can't. Dude's on
Well,
my
there's
head
a.
now.
Oh,
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to
I
share
see that there's.
the.
Yeah, there should be a share screen button. Yeah.
Yeah, it says choose what to share with Streamyard, and
Right. So you just got to figure out which window it's in.
oh, there we go. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yep. Well, not yet. Now we. Oh, hold on. Wait. No, this is the one I want to do. There we go. Now we can.
Cool. So anyway, yeah. So this kind of goes through some of the different. I mean, there's 600 breeds. We don't got time to go through all
Okay,
600
that
of
one's hilarious.
them. Oh,
That last one looked like he's been skipping leg day.
there's some wild looking breeds, and this is where it's funny. So we go to like shows and stuff, and you're looking at these wild breeds, and some people really just get called to certain breeds, which is interesting. I mean, I definitely, I got my breeds that I really liked. English Magpies was a real fancy breed that I liked getting into. I just love the color, and they kind of got like a snake kind of neck to it. It's a real cool bird. But this is fun, So like my son will kind of go through breeds. Like right now he's really into the fantails, which I don't know if one of those are going to pop up or not, but they're a pretty wild looking bird. It looks like their head's coming out of their back. Um, and, and this is where it gets crazy because this is all through human selection and breeding.
Right.
And this is just the breeds that are kind of more in the fancy side, but like the trumpeter, that's a tumbler bird, it's a Volkmar, a cropper.
See, now
So
that looks like the pigeons that I see around town.
yeah, so you'll see the common what they call is a blue bar, and they're the ones that got that bar on the side of them. And but just through the breeding, you can get all kinds of different colors and patterns, and
Now,
it gets pretty wild. But now and during the talk, I was like, guys, like even you look at these birds and see if there's anything that you think would be really interesting and fun to raise. But let your kids look through this and see if there's any bird that they're really kind of called to on this, because that's the whole thing. It's like letting your kid get dressed by themselves. Like they're going to claim it as
oh
their
yeah.
own. They're
Oh,
going to kind of stick with
and
it
if
more.
it's my kid, they're going to pick the funkiest looking one they can
Hmm.
possibly find.
Yes.
Which one thing I was going to ask about is I noticed that there was a section of them that were going past where a whole bunch of them seemed to have a whole bunch of extra feathers on their feet.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yep.
Like,
Yeah, and so that's part of the fancy right there. The fancier breeds will have stuff like that where their feet will be dramatically feathered, like that one trumpeter had feathers that
right,
spread out, and
right.
that
Is that like bred for like ornamental reasons, or did
right,
that
yeah.
actually
So
exist biologically for something and we
oh,
added to it?
right. So actually, all of these pigeons, all 600 breeds, all come from that blue bar, that feral looking pigeon you're talking about with the black
Uh
bars
huh.
on his wings. So every wild looking bird can trace its ancestry back to that one type of pigeon. So what happens is somebody be like, man, I kind of like the wattle on this one, and then it's a big wattle, so I'm going to breed it with another one, and it just goes on and on and on till you get this
So
extreme
that's the
wattle.
English magpie that you were
Yeah, there's
talking
the
about.
magpie. Yeah, I used to have some of those. I like that look, with the snake looking neck and
Yeah.
uh, just kind of cool looking. Look at the beaks. Some of these got really short beaks, and
I was
that's
going to
just
say, I
another
noticed a
thing.
bunch of them have like really flat faces too.
Yeah, yep. And so they'll pick a trait and then just keep breeding those two together, and then somebody else will come in and oh well, that I got one with another short beak. Let's breed these all together, and then they'll start getting these really short faced ones and or the really long feathers on the feet and get the extremes. And then when you actually get a bloodline that every time you breed two birds together, you can get this expected result, then you got to breed a new breed. And then you can even cross breeds to come up with different stuff. So, I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's the breeds are a really fun aspect of it. So we're just gonna touch on like a few general ones. Like I
Right.
said, there's a lot of them, but we'll
Now,
just talk about
you
a
want to go
few.
back to your slide deck?
Let's see. Here we go.
I mean, I can put you back on your slide deck if you would like.
Yeah, the is that where's that at here?
Here, hold on.
Cool,
There,
cool.
there's your slides.
Yeah, so these guys right here. So there's utility. Like, like I said, I appreciate you not having your background a plate with some garnished squab, but that's what these guys are, right? So these are what this breed is called White King. They're about the size of they're bigger than some of like the bantam chickens. They're big
Mm-hmm.
pigeons. They're bred for meat, and there's also kind of almost a fancy breed like American Bohemian Powders used to be bred for meat. Um, some of the larger breeds are usually bred for meat. So that's one side of it. And people used it for agricultural purposes. And they'd have these dove coats, these big towers with holes on the inside. And they would just let the pigeons breed all the time. They'd scrape the bottom for droppings for their fields, go in there and get eggs and meat and stuff like that. So that's one of the aspects that we've had with these pigeons for a long time.
And for the people who aren't quite as familiar with cuisine, if you go to Europe, you find pigeon on menus all over the place. Here in America, when someone says pigeon, again, like you said, people think of them as vermin, the whole rats with wings and the rest of it. So nobody would eat that. So they changed the name to squab. and now they charge like $25 for it at restaurants on a good day.
Yes.
But it's still a pigeon.
Yes. And we've eaten it for thousands of years, so
Oh
don't
yeah.
shy away. I mean, it is a delicacy in a lot of places, and America's kind of got a different view on food than most of the world, I think.
Well, I mean, I'll be the first one to say it. I've enjoyed squab. At the end of the day, kind of like eating doves or anything, any small bird. There's a
Mhm.
whole lot of work to meat ratio
Yeah.
when you're eating them. If you look at if you're eating like quail, for instance, a whole quail is like 5 bites of meat for the average human.
But
That's
they're
an awful lot of work picking through bones to get that little bit of meat. So
yeah.
it's certainly not something that I go out of my way to look for, but I don't shy away from it if it's on a menu.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you
Now,
see my screen when I do this?
well, no, you have to let me actually. There we go. We have to switch to this. Is that the one you're looking for?
Yeah. I was gonna see
Yeah,
it
I have to
because this
switch
one.
back and forth. One is your
Oh,
slide deck, and the other one is your share screen.
okay. Well, I'm gonna hit play on this one to show some other interesting. We kind of looked at some pictures. So these are some of the other. I don't know if you can see those.
Uh
Some of
huh.
the other fancy breeds and stuff. So utility is one, fancy is the other. And as far as like what you're going to be bringing your kids in for what you want them to learn, they're all going to involve record keeping for breeding and stuff like this. So it's fancy. There's actually a standard for every breed. There's a picture of a bird, and they say this picture is the perfect representation of that bird, and this is what you're trying to breed for. So if you got a pigeon with a one dark feather in the middle, that's not what you want. You want to try to breed for something good and clean. So this will teach the kids about genetics. It'll obviously teach them about feeding and supplements, record keeping, and breeding to get a desired trait out of a bird. Um, and of course, prepping a bird for a show and all the little things, bathing it and stuff like that. But you can see I mean,
Now,
these are some pretty wild birds right here.
I'll say the big puffed out piece on their chest,
Yeah,
is that like inflated with air, or is that
it
like
is. Yeah, so that's their
their
crop right there.
flesh?
That's the yeah. So they'll blow that up to try to impress the female hens, and so even like when you're trying to show these pigeons, right? So you put them in a show cage like what I got behind me here, and then
Uh-huh.
you got to get that bird to globe up so the judge can see how it presents its globe and everything else. So with these pigeons, they're vocal. You can make a cooing sound to them, and they'll coo back and make different sounds to get them to react and to blow up like that and get their globe real nice and big. Some of them stay like that. There's other ones that actually will only blow up like that during mating time or when you get them to react that way, and so on. So yeah, so these are some of the different the fancy side
That's
of it
just
here.
pretty.
Yeah, that is that. I like in the eyes. You see the eyes; they got that pearl eye. I think that's real pretty eyes they have on there. I really like the white birds. That's what kind of got me into this originally was the white birds. So I'm biased towards them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that.
And let's see, I'm gonna try to. Okay, there we go. Oops, sorry about that. I went too far back. I was gonna go to the next one. So the next one we talked about already, the performing
Uh-huh.
ones like with the Birmingham rollers and things. And
Right.
this is
Well, I
this
was
is
going to
pretty cool.
ask, do you have video of these things like tumbling around? Because that sounds like it would be fascinating to see.
Yes, check this out. So they do a slow motion of it because it happens fast. So you see the birds when they start to flip in the air, and those are the Birmingham rollers right there. So when you're flying them, you'll see them start doing their tumbles like that, and they'll drop 40 feet out of the sky. It's something to watch, really.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
if I didn't know, I would assume someone had like shot them.
right. That they look like if you got a hunting background, you'd think that it looks like when a flock of ducks take off on a pond and you see two of them just fall. And that's
Uh-huh.
why I said like these guys, who are flying these off their loft because these don't home, right? So you open up your loft, you fly them around your property for 20, 30 minutes, hour, whatever. So if you're doing that and a falcon or a bird of prey comes by and they see that, that's going to trigger in their head that bird is injured. It's an easy target. I'm going to go for it.
Oh
So if
yeah.
you're in so these guys who are kind of getting hit by the BOP more than usual just because of that breed. But we got Birmingham rollers. My son's had them for a couple of years, and he's never lost any. He had a BOP one time come through, but then they just flew really high. But just we're in a pretty low activity area for birds of prey. But especially with these are really, I like birds that do things and perform. I think this is a really cool trait to see.
Oh, that is
And
neat to watch.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
they
so
would not last long in my neighborhood.
oh, you guys, yeah, with all the trees, you probably got a lot of falcons and stuff.
We literally, I walked my kids to school this morning, and there were 3 red hawks, probably about 1.5 to 2 feet tall, literally hanging out on the back of the
Yeah,
soccer goal of the elementary school.
yeah, yeah. That's not a good setup for sure. I mean, there's different
No.
breeds for different things, and really like homers and stuff. They actually do a competition in Utah where they take falconers will get together and they'll get a nice racing pigeon, like a high speed one, and they release the pigeon and see who gets to where first. And 90% of the time, the pigeon will get away. And that's usually the
Huh.
case with pigeons. Pigeons are fast. They know how to maneuver really well. But as you can see with these birds right here, they're bred for one purpose, and that is to roll. So that's another part of that selective breeding. They'll have a bird that maybe rolled out of a self defense sort of thing or whatever, and then they just kept breeding them to a certain point of kind of being extreme.
I'll say that
And
is really cool.
yeah, so this is funny. My son did he makes these instead of paper airplanes at school. He comes home with these rolling. They roll. I don't know how he makes them, but they're roller pigeon paper airplanes.
Nice.
Yeah. And so this is us at one of the club shows. We belong to the Arizona Pigeon Club, and it's a state club, so we travel around a lot and go do things out there.
And do
So
most states have like a pigeon club? I mean, is this
yeah.
common across the U.S. or is this more of a Southwest thing?
Oh no, it sure is, and if anything, it's bigger, especially on the East Coast and Midwest. And it's also kind of funny because as you go to different places, you'll see there's different breeds that are more popular in different places. Um, so this guy right here, these are parlor rollers. These are a lot of fun. So these are completely flightless. This is all they do. So these birds are, yeah, they just roll. And
So they just do somersaults all day long.
yep, that's all they're trained to do. That's actually what's behind me right now. I got some parlor rollers, and we'll take them to the park. And these are actually really good for, if you're bringing kids into it, because if the kid is trying to hold a big racing homer, the bird might slip out of their hand, and even though it's a homer, it's just going to go back home. But
Mm-hmm.
with these guys right here, it's just going to hit the ground, and that's all it's going to do. And the world record for this guy had Paul Gambini actually has first, second, and third place. He got these things to roll over 1,000 feet, man. I'm
Good
talking
Lord.
15, 20 minutes. They were just watching this pigeon roll. So that's how they compete with these. They compete by roller guys get out to a park somewhere. They all bring a little measuring wheel, and they'll drop their birds, let them roll, and that's all there is to it. That's a pretty fun breed right there. I remember when I gave the presentation, a couple of guys were like, "Tell me more about those bowling pigeons." I'm like, well, they're not called
Yeah.
bowling. They're not called bowling pigeons, but they are pretty
No,
cool.
but I can see that. Like if we set up like some small little pins, you could actually use them. Be a fun.
All right.
It'd be a fun backyard game.
Yeah. So what
Certainly, certainly
I do
better
that with the
than
kids.
like beanbag tossing.
Yeah, I'll have the kids each like they'll 3 or 4 kids each hold a pigeon, the parlor rollers, and then they release them at the park and see which one kind of gets to the end first or rolls the furthest. So that way they can all. I look at it as remember those old wind up cars you kind of yank on back on them and they shoot
Uh
off.
huh.
It's kind of like that, right? Where it's a really interactive breed. And this is another one. So these are the tumbler pigeons. That's what Mr. Fluffy is here, right? So they'll do one flip in the air, and they even have other ones like this that stand and do a flip, and that's how they judge it, depending on how close its feet comes back to the same area. And it's a really fascinating to watch and to get into these performing breeds. And it's cool because you get to take part in training it. Your kids get to take part in training it, try to get them to do, pretty extreme stuff and kind of be the best
Now,
at it.
when it comes to these backflips and that type of thing, you talk about training.
Mhm.
I, I mean, this is going to sound really corny, but like, when I teach somebody how to do something, I show them how to do it. You obviously cannot show a bird how to do a flip in the air.
Right, but there's things that you can do to encourage more flips. So, like with the Birmingham roller, there's feed programs that you can put them on, ways that you fly them every day to keep them healthy and active. If you get them too fat on the food, they won't flip. If you get them to a healthy point. And so I could see where some people might be like, "Oh, this is a little bit like extreme to be doing to these birds or whatever." But like, take this into consideration where a feral pigeon's lifespan is about 4 years in the streets, whereas all these pigeons that we're looking at here, these pets and these competers, people got pigeons that are over 20 years old in their lofts because they're so well taken care of. They're given good food, clean water, and they live a lot longer that way. And that's kind of what
And
you're
they're
trying to get.
protected, and they're protected from natural predators as well.
Oh yeah, they got the safest place they could have right there. Um, Another extreme kind of bird right here. I mean, even zooming in, I don't really know how good this is going to do, but so those up there, those are high flyer pigeons, and the
Okay.
competition with this is you release the birds, set a timer, and then when they come back, you shut off the timer. So this is crazy because like the world record right now is 24 hours, over 24 hours. So these birds go up in the dark, fly for 24 hours, and come back in the dark. And so these are some really, really athletic birds. They can stay on the wing for that long of a time. So, you talk about, feeding some birds and, getting them healthy. Even at a young age, when they're 3 months old, these birds can fly for like 10 hours. It's just incredible. So these are kind of the performing side. I don't know if the audio is going to come through for this, but this is pretty cool right here.
It should.
Let's see if you can hear this. And not my pigeon. So these are Chang pigeons, and there's all kinds of these different. Oh, shut that down. So there's all kinds of these different. Trumpeter is a whole side sect of breed, and especially like I know in the Middle East and stuff like that, they'll actually put some of these like different ones, like the laughing pigeon is one. They'll put them in temples and things like that because of the sounds they make. I know we've talked before on the Dad Lounge about like the cooing sound that's always going on in the
I was
background.
gonna say, uh, it is soothing, man.
Yeah,
Like that
that
cooing sound
cooing.
in the background behind you, that's kind of nice, man. That's rather relaxing.
Yes, I like it. I mean, and I'm used to it, I guess, and maybe that's part of it. But
I'll say that last one sounded like a pigeon trying to pretend it was a chicken.
yeah, that kind of sounded like the rubber chicken. I mean, and there's some you can go on YouTube and whatever, and the laughing pigeon. There's a lot. There's a whole other breed of trumpeters, and they'll even they have competitions for that too, and you can go down that rabbit hole. It's a lot of fun. Um, and then like we talked earlier, the racers, right? So here we're driving to school. I kind of say, who's been behaving the best. You guys get to release the birds, and so at about 15 miles, I'll stop. I'll let one of them open it up. We'll do the release, and then we just drive the rest of the way on into school. But it's
And
fun
then they're
for
waiting for you when you get home.
oh yeah, these guys. I mean, this is only 15 miles, so they get there in minutes. They're pretty quick about it. It's racing is going to be one of the biggest things. Like when you're out there looking for different clubs and stuff, you're probably going to run into a lot of race clubs. It's been going on for a long time. Race clubs are pretty big, pretty popular stuff, and it's you're gonna run into a lot of that, and it's fun. It is fun. I don't belong to a race club because there's no race club in my area. I race for my own enjoyment and for training my own birds for the white dove releases.
And and again, looking at your son's face in that picture, I mean, there was a smile on his face when he turned around after releasing the birds. So
Right.
I'm assuming there's some healthy competition among the kids as to who's allowed to release today.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's whoever behaves the best on the way in. They're the ones who are going to be able to open up that thing. So
Oh, that's
and
nice.
and this is kind of there's other schools that do this, but this is from a school out in California where they actually had the kids build a loft and participate in a race club in their local area, and then
Hmm.
all the different stuff that they're teaching these kids, and it's been going on for years now. It's been a huge success. I mean, you can just see all the different things that you can learn nutrition, health, record keeping, data collection. They're breeding these pigeons. They're competing in the races, and this has been a really popular thing. Um, I know we've talked to professors who have lofts on colleges and college students who are doing, like the navigational experiments on them and stuff. It's your kids can just learn so much, and it's as deep as you want to get with it. You don't have to, but you can, and you can make a
Right.
really good learning thing with your kids. So, this is the whole we kind of talked about earlier. So we do have a podcast, it's all about pigeons podcast, and we are trying to just promote the hobby. So we cover everything, whatever the listeners ask for and stuff, but it's
And where can they find the podcast?
so we're on most platforms, Spotify, Amazon,
Okay.
Google, Apple, stuff like that, with YouTube
Okay.
and stuff as well. So if you search all about pigeons, it should come up. And we do a lot of beginner stuff, just trying to promote the hobby and get people into it to get started, because that's all it takes, man, for real. Like, you get that bug, it's a one-way route with it. So the other route are the traditional route. So 4-H already has programs, laid out where pigeon showing, all these things, and they can get you to where you need to go with it. 4-H, and so does the FFA
FFA,
has
the
some,
Future
yeah.
Farmers. Yeah.
And like we talked, also the clubs. There's tons of clubs. There's state clubs. There's city clubs. There's specialty breeds clubs that are all about, like, the trumpeter, the old German owl, the English magpie club, and their national clubs, or there's rare breeds clubs. So you can get into a club, and the easiest way I would say is honestly just um, check out a Facebook group in your area and see what comes up. You might be surprised at the variety. I mean, I use Facebook for one thing, and that's for all my pigeon club stuff. I
You
love
know,
looking at all these different pigeons.
I will say, there are definitely some negative aspects to social media, but
Yes,
one thing that social media is really good at is connecting people with similar interests from all around the country,
yes,
and really all around the world.
yeah, oh yeah,
I mean, even the National At Home Dad Network, if you look at our Facebook page, we've got guys who are posting from foreign countries. We've got,
mhm,
but at the end of the day, we're all posting about the same thing.
right,
We're
yeah,
posting about, the life of being an at-home dad and being that primary caregiver. And honestly, ask him the questions, because again, you mentioned your oldest is 10. My oldest just turned 10, and she is rapidly approaching those tween and teen years, and I'm clueless.
mm,
And I'm really relying on some of the other dads in the community that have already been through this to
oh,
talk me off the ledge, so to speak.
yep. No, I've been hitting Arvis up about, my son's 10, and his sons are 3 years older, 4 years older, and he's kind of giving me some stuff to look forward to, so I'm not too surprised when it comes up. But yeah, the At Home Dad Network, the Dad Lounge, we've had guys
Hmm.
from all over the world jumping on there, because it's different times and stuff like that, and it's all the same. We're all doing the same thing regardless of where. So it is great that we can use these things to connect that way.
Yeah,
And
I mean, honestly, I don't. I couldn't tell you when the last time I logged on to Facebook and just scrolled through whatever, like my feed or whatever that is.
mhm,
9 times out of 10, I log into Facebook and I go specifically to certain group pages so that I can interact with the people in those groups.
yeah,
Now, speaking of interacting, one thing that I did want to bring up, coming up this year, October 17th through the 19th, we're having Home Dad Con for 2024. This year, it's going to be in St. Louis, Missouri. We're going to be having the entire convention at the Drury Hotel, which is actually literally within a block or two of the actual arch itself. So we're going to be right in the heart of downtown. It's going to be a great time. We're going to have speakers and breakouts, just like any other professional convention. It's just this is professional development for professional dads.
yes,
If you want more information, please feel free to check out our website at homedad.org. That's got all the information there, including the ability to become a member of the organization, which gives you access to some of the past recordings from some of the previous Home Dad Cons. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they've uploaded the stuff from Minneapolis, where we actually had oh God, what was it? A evolutionary anthropologist from, oh gods, I'm blanking. Dr. Anna Machin, and she was from, oh Lord, what's the big college in England?
Cambridge?
No, not Cambridge. Anyway, she came in and gave an absolutely amazing keynote address talking about the genetic and biological changes that come to men when we become fathers. With actual differences in brain activity and that type of thing. It really is quite, it really was quite fascinating. But, there's a little bit of everything in there for everyone. Here we go. Oxford. Thank you.
Okay, there it is.
Thank you, Google. Again, it's been a long day. It's a little after 8 o'clock here where I am. So, we're approaching, we're a little past bedtime for the kids right now. But again, as we mentioned, we've got members from all over the country. Phil is in Arizona. I'm on the East Coast in North Carolina. So, when we do these Dad X talks, I tend to work my schedule around our guest schedule because they're being kind enough to join us. So, they get priority. And I really do appreciate your time today. That was, this has been great. I had absolutely no idea whatsoever that there was this much going on with pigeons. I knew about homing pigeons. I thought all they did was racing.
Right. And that's where, I just think a lot of it just doesn't, people get that ratchet wing thing in their head and then forget about it. And then once you get in that world, it's just, and it's easy to do. I mean, you can, you don't have to join a club. If you can't find a club, just do it on your own. But honestly, if you can't use Facebook or whatever, there's other ways. You can literally Google. When I was in Wisconsin, there's the Wisconsin Pigeon Club. I was going to reach out to those guys, but it's everywhere. It's the oldest hobby on earth. So it's going to keep going on, and it's really been. I've seen my kids kind of grow in a unique way because of their exposure to it. And I wanted to share that with everybody. It's.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming to join us. Again, I encourage everybody to stop by our website. Please follow us here on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. We will be doing another one of these in February. I do not have a date locked out yet with my potential guest. Yep, Dale just popped in and mentioned that it was Oxford. Apparently, his Google fingers were better than mine.
Nice. What's up, Dale?
Dale Van Vlera is our volunteer coordinator for the organization. So once again, the National At-Home Dad Network, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are a volunteer, completely volunteer run and operated organization. Everybody on the board volunteers their time. We all work together to produce this community, and we would love for you guys to be a part of it. And, if you are interested in volunteering, I did put up Dale's email address. Dale, being our volunteer coordinator, feel free to reach out to him and let him know if you have skills that you would like to put into the hat. I've been on the board for a few years now. I'm the board secretary now. But I got started volunteering, helping out with the food service at the convention because I was a chef before I became a stay-at-home dad. And kind of like pigeons, once they get you in there a little bit, the next thing you know, you're running for the board, doing meetings and all the rest of it.
I'll say this too: with these conventions and everything, the first one I went to was the 2020. Remember, we did it all online.
Yes,
and
I did remember that.
I went to your breakout that was on cooking. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, I literally started cooking and zero experience, man. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. But it was awesome because instead of my wife cooking when she got off of work, by me cooking and having dinner ready, we literally had like 2.5 hours every evening that just kind of came out of nowhere. We literally were like twiddling our thumbs at first, like, wow, this is incredible. Then the next one, I took different things away from each one. I went to that gaming talk that
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name now, but it was an awesome breakout. He took away all that stigma about, oh, video gaming is bad. Just anything out of balance is bad. But you can learn with your kids and teach your kids stuff. So I was like, came home, I got a Switch, I started gaming with my kids, and
And did you follow the rule? Did you make sure that they never beat you at Mario Kart?
did I do my best? I really do.
Yeah.
But you know what I
I
mean? Like each one of
just
these
got a
is like,
Switch this year for Christmas, and I'm
oh,
afraid
nice,
to get on Mario Kart with the kids because I know that they're just going to stomp me.
nice. Yeah, and that's with all these conventions, I try to like take one thing away that I can implement and software update myself, get myself going in a better direction as the full-time caregiver. And these
Oh
conventions
yeah,
always come through with something. I mean, they're it's a powerful thing, and of course, the
it really
camaraderie
is.
thing is.
And again, if it's a financial aspect, we do have the Brian Dixon Memorial Scholarship Fund, which is there specifically for dads that where the finances may be a barrier. We have communities that donate, a part of every person's membership dues goes directly into that fund. There's a group of guys that run a beer share committee that basically, they do beer tasting at the convention. I mean, now obviously everybody has to be 21, and it's not like people are sucking down, beer after beer. This is literally tasting, small amounts of lots of different beers. But they do auctioning, and they raise massive amounts of money for the scholarship fund, and we cannot thank them enough. Joe Saladano and the rest of the guys on that committee have just been fantastic to us.
Yeah, the beer show's a lot of
And
fun.
yeah, it is a lot of fun. It is, and again, as much entertainment as there is, and education that goes on during the day. Once the convention shuts down at the end of the night, we end up with a lot of guys doing different things. Some guys will go out and go sample the local cuisine at local restaurants. There's a community of guys, myself included, who are old school Dungeons and Dragons and role playing nerds. And we literally gather in somebody's hotel room and play D&D for hours like we did back when we were kids.
Yep.
You
Yeah, we were
know,
throwing bones in the game room at the last one. That was a lot of fun. And you guys actually got to go to probably the coolest place to play D&D, man. Like you got to mention that. Like that was pretty cool.
last year we were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I found out that it was right around an hour and a half drive from Milwaukee to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is where Dungeons and Dragons was created. And we found out that you could actually rent the house that Gary Gygax, the creator of D&D, lived in when he made the game. That you could rent the house for the day and play D&D in the house where it was invented. And yes, we totally did.
That's so
We had a group of I think it was about 14 or 15 of us that went out, and it was absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, there's something for everybody. This year, one of the big pre-convention activities that I discovered this year that hits two of the things that I enjoy is a couple of different conventions. We've done kayaking trips ahead of the convention, which I find incredibly relaxing. As a full-time stay-at-home dad, I don't get a lot of quiet time because, again, I have a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. And my 6-year-old is at that age where he hasn't learned to control the volume of his voice. So everything is at like yelling. And there's something nice about just like getting out in nature and being on the water and the paddling and the quiet. And another thing that I really enjoy is caves. And I found a place that's about an hour and 15 minutes south of St. Louis where we're going to go kayaking inside of a cave.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like an old flooded mine, but literally it's a 2.5 hour kayaking trip with like a flashlight on your forehead through a cave, which
Wow.
just, again, what a way to spend the day,
Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't know, it kind of sounds a little scary, but I mean it's also got to be super peaceful down there.
Yeah, well, it's going to be fun. We have a guide. They have experienced
Yeah.
people. They've been running the. There's one kayaking company that does it. They've been doing it for years. They've got a great safety record, so we're really looking forward to it. But
Nice.
look, we're coming up on an hour now, so in general, most parents at this point have run out of free time.
I get
I
that.
thank you for coming to join us, Phil, and also again, was it Mr. Fluffles or
Mr. Fluffy, yeah.
yeah, Mr. Fluffy? We want to thank you, Mr. Fluffy, too. You've been a lot of fun, man. You really have. You've been a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing everybody come and join us next month in February. Keep an eye on our YouTube page and our Facebook page, also on our LinkedIn page. We'll be advertising when our next DadX discussion is happening and the times, and you'll be able to join us then. In the meantime, have a great evening, and everybody have a good night. And hey, start looking at pigeons a little differently.
That's right.
Maybe stop thinking of them as rats with wings, and start realizing that they're a pretty cool little bird.
Sure.
All right, everybody, have a good night. And on behalf of the National at Home Dad Network, thank you so much.